This is the Stop Time Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hopkins, and I'm here to engage you in thought-provoking, motivational conversations around practicing the art of living in the moment. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm excited to dig deep and offer insights into embracing who we are and where we are at. So my next guest is a unique personality. I had so much fun with this conversation. He's an award-winning performing artist who, along with his wife and partner Cindy, toured the world for more than 25 years with one of the largest and most successful theatrical illusion productions in the U.S. They left behind a trail of accolades in their wake, including 2009 International Illusionists of the Year and 6-time recipients of Performing Arts Entertainer of the Year. They're also the recipients of the magic industry's most prestigious award given by the Milburn Christopher Foundation, the 2015 International Illusionists of the Year, for notable contributions to the art of magic. At the pinnacle of their career, they stepped away from the big stage and into classrooms and hospitals around the globe. My next guest is the leading international authority on the academic and therapeutic benefits of simple magic tricks in educational and clinical settings. His amazing work focuses on using the art of magic to impact change in the lives of children with autism, developmental disabilities, intellectual challenges, emotional disturbance, and those who have experienced trauma. So it's with pleasure that I introduce you all to Dr. Kevin Spencer. And we jumped right in. Hey, Kevin, where are you calling in from?
I'm in just outside of Little Rock, Arkansas.
Okay.
We used to be on the East Coast, but my mom and dad retired here years ago, and I have a sister here and a younger brother up in Northwest Arkansas. So during the pandemic, when nobody was doing anything, we took the opportunity to move closer to my family.
Very nice. Yeah.
Our stories are just so similar, the way we were both on these separate paths, but not finding this place of integrating the two works together. And mine definitely happened during the first financial crisis of 2008, because I was already doing this work, but I wasn't, to use your word, leveraging it within the marketplace.
Yeah.
And some presenters kind of knew that I was doing this work, but it was in that financial crisis where presenters started coming to me saying, hey, look, the hospital is a major sponsor of our performing arts season. If they gave us money, I understand you're doing this thing as, on your own. Is there a way that we could leverage that and give something of value back to the hospital for their donation and for their sponsorship? And that's when it started to roll for me. I think presenters saw this unique opportunity to connect with their community in a different way. And then my residency just started to roll to the point that it rolled past it. I mean, we had to make a decision about, were we going to take on more residency work at the expense of the actual production? And it just got to this place of, we had to make a decision. And for Cindy and I, it was a fairly easy decision to make. We had been on the road for over 30 years already. We had worked with almost every major performing arts center in the US. We'd done 4 international tours performing in some of the most incredible theaters in Europe and Asia. And it just got to this place of, this is great. I mean, who gets to grow up and do this, right? I mean, we are so privileged to do what we do. But it was bigger than that. It was like, how many times do we need the applause of another, 2,500 seat audience when we can do this really significant, meaningful, impactful work? And the applause of one is so much more powerful sometimes than the applause of 2,500. So it was easy for us to kind of say, okay, so this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so important what you said about the applause of one. It's funny, little impact everywhere, right? I mean, I really,
right.
It's like we all dream about, and it's great, right? I mean, I want to make an impact in the world. And, we're so busy going for that dream that we forget all the impact we can make along the way. The little ones?
Yes, the little ones. Yeah. And the little ones are meaningful, you know. The big ones are certainly, those are meaningful, and there's something to shoot forward to look at and say, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. But if you miss all of those little impactful moments along the way that build up to those big moments, then you've missed an opportunity to serve people in a way that can be really life-changing for them and for you. You know, we all learn so much from those experiences.
I really want to ask you, because I think everyone will be, I know I'm fascinated. Take us back to when you found magic.
And so that's pretty vivid still for me. I saw my first magician perform on television when I was 5, and remember saying to my mom, when I grow up, I'm going to be a magician. And as every good Southern mother does, right? She patted me on the head and she said, you can do whatever you want to if you put your mind to it. When I was about 8, they bought me a magic set for Christmas. And I learned those little tricks, carried them to elementary school and junior high school with me, ended up working my way through college doing magic. Actually went to college on a music scholarship, and I was studying to be a concert pianist. So performance was always kind of an aspect of what I wanted to do. But it was always wrapped around, performance was secondary to wanting to do something that I loved. And I loved music. So, and I loved playing the piano. And I thought, I'm good at this. I could do this and maybe bring joy to other people through the music. But when I got into college, I just got bit again by that magic bug. And the more I started to do shows in college, the more I recognized this was really the direction that I wanted to go. So I changed my major from music to psychology, because if you're going to be a magician and mess with people's minds, you should have a little bit of understanding of how they work. So did the psychology thing. And then when I finished school, moved to Dallas, because I knew I didn't want to go to Chicago because it was too cold. I didn't want to go to New York because it was too big. And I didn't want to go to LA because everybody goes to LA. So where could I go to still kind of make a mark in the entertainment industry? And Dallas was really starting to kind of come alive at that point. A lot of agencies were going in there. A lot of talent agencies were going in there. So I moved to Dallas. And one of my old college roommates was finishing a television degree at one of the universities. And he said, come to Texas. We'll get an apartment together. And so that's what I did.
That's so cool. What was it about the magic when you were 5? What was it, do you think? What really intrigued you? What drew you to it?
That's a great question. I think it was recognizing the impossibility of what had just happened. I think that was part of it, you know, that's not supposed to happen, and yet it just did. And being completely captivated by the way I felt, how that made me feel. And I think that's something we never lose. Even as we get into our adulthood, we sometimes tap it down because we don't want to. Some people don't want to be fooled. Some people think that that's maybe a weakness that they have, that somebody could do that, and I couldn't understand it. But I think as human beings, curiosity is such a natural part of who we are. And when we see the impossibility of something, it really can transport us back to these childhood experiences where everything was impossible when we were growing up. And every little miracle that we experienced, everything from learning to walk to learning to write, and school, every part of school from first to second grade, these are all magical experiences because we learn and we take on these new impossibilities. And I think I was just kind of captivated by impossibility. That's not supposed to happen, and yet it did. I want to do that.
That's cool. You strike me as someone that even as at a young age, because you talked about the piano and knowing that you were gifted. So it's kind of interesting that it's coming to me that maybe the magic was it something that made you actually feel challenged, or was it something that, no, I could do that? Or was it, you strike me as a really smart person, someone who likes to be intrigued and challenged. Talk to me.
So I do love to be challenged. I love a good challenge. Growing up, even into college, my friends used to always to say I was not the guy who stood on the edge. I was the guy who wrapped his toes around the edge and perched there. So I do like that. I do like to be challenged. And I think part of what magic is about is that it challenges our perceptions of the world, of reality, because you really have to look at something and go, what, what what just happened there? And our minds do not like to live in this place of not understanding. We have this need to process information. I mean, it's what makes us human. And so when you're confronted with these impossibilities, our brain just kind of goes nuts. And it's like, what just happened? I need to understand that. I need to understand that. We used to joke about when we were traveling on the road, it takes two different kinds of people in the audience to make a great audience for a magic show. You have to have those people who are willing to come in and just suspend their belief for a little while and just say, whatever happens, it's going to happen and I'm going to love it. But you also have to have those people who question everything. How did he do that? Oh, I think, and even if they come up with the most ridiculous explanation to the trick, it satisfies their need to process that information so they can go. But when intermission happens, if you don't have both of those people, there's no conversation in the lobby.
Ah, interesting.
There's got to be those people who say, "Oh, I think I know how he did it," to those people who say, "I don't want to know. I don't want to know." You've got to have both of those people to get that conversation going during intermission. And then when the audience comes back for the second half of the show, it's a different audience.
Yeah.
We had a real structure to the way, a psychological structure to the way the show came together. And the first half of the show really was about establishing our presence as magicians, as illusionists, and doing all of these, theatrical impossibilities on the stage. We wanted them to know that, one, we were different, that we really believed in doing magic as a theatrical art form and not just throwing a trick on the stage and being a trick machine. We wanted there to be meaning and emotion connected to what they were seeing on the stage. And so every illusion was so carefully designed for us and created for us that to help us capture that emotional experience. We used to always wonder why magicians didn't treat magic in the same way that dancers treat dance or musicians treat music or actors treat theater. The art of illusion has the ability to move people both intellectually and emotionally in the same way as all great art disciplines. It's just magicians don't always do a very good job of doing that. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted our audiences to experience the show on an intellectual level and on an emotional level.
It's so fascinating because it sounds so beyond what most people think magic to be, right? Which is just to be either sit back, like you said, and go, oh yeah, let's see this guy, see if he can trick me. He can't trick me. This isn't real. Right. Or,
Right.
or just be delighted by it. It's like the fine line between being delighted and then also shifting you're shifting their perspectives, right? It's a much deeper thing than tricking them, right?
Yes. Yeah. Our goal was never to trick them.
No.
We never wanted, but far too often I hear from people, oh, I don't really like magicians. It's like, why? Mm-hmm. Well, because there's an element of arrogance that comes with magic, that they feel like, I know something you don't know, and I'm going to hold this over your head as a performer, and I'm going to do this trick, and I'm going to look at you like, So my teacher, my mentor, was a magician that was really popular in the 70s and 80s, a guy named Doug Henning. And Doug was a brilliant performer. He was the first real magician to take a show to Broadway with the Magic Show. And he had this concept of magic that was very different from everybody else at the time. Everything was still in tux and tails and gloves, top hats, and stages were dark and magicians were in spotlights. And Doug came on the scene, this long-haired hippie guy from Canada, and in bright blue overalls and rainbow tennis shoes, and the stage was bright and there were clouds and rainbows and stars and nothing was hidden, nothing was in the dark. And Doug was as amazed by his magic as the audience was. He never held it over you. He would do this trick and it would be like, look at that, check that out. Isn't that amazing? And so you liked him. You liked him a lot. And because you liked him, you liked what he did on stage.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And like you said, there are so many preconceived notions about what that is, right? We all put people in a box. But I'm really curious to know how that developed. Another person might be saying, I can imagine someone saying, oh, I wanted to trick people and I loved it when I made people laugh, or when I'm not hearing that at all. I'm hearing first that you that you were intrigued by it because it challenged you. So it was really a relationship between you and the magic first. There was no attachment to how you were going to use this, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then it must have evolved into I get it, right? So you're using your brain, right? And you're playing, and then you must have there. Obviously, the next element is doing it with people, having that other element, right? How did that change or shift in terms of knowing what your responsibility or capabilities were, or how you could use it? I mean, for an early age.
So I have really vivid memories of like being in fifth grade and doing magic in fifth grade during recess and that sort of thing. You know what I think always drew me to magic was not so much how I could trick people, but how I could make them feel.
Yeah.
That through a magic trick, they could feel this surprise or amazement or sense of wonder. And I think because I also played the piano and I could relate to how music made people feel. I think this is the difference between an artist and a performer, regardless of what their art form is. I mean, we have lots of people who are performers. We have very few people who are artists who can take their discipline and actually impact the way somebody feels, the way somebody thinks, the way they are in that moment. And I think as somebody who studied music, I understood the power of music to change the way we feel or to let us experience new emotions. And I think I transferred that over to magic. I saw how a simple, ridiculous little magic trick could make somebody feel something different. And I think that's what captivated me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you think that, because I know that you said that they were pretty equal in terms of you being drawn to them, do you think the aspect of magic had the one extra element, which was you really saw the audience reaction in real time and were part of it too? Like that you were able to
Probably.
interact? Yeah.
Yeah. And that interaction part, I think, is what I needed as a human, but also needed as an artist. It was, I didn't want, while I loved playing the piano, that is not an interactive experience for the audience. And magic so is an interactive experience with the audience. It's immediate. You see that impact that you have instantly. And one of the things that we always found so curious about our shows, and my crew used to always say it was because Cindy and I just made the audience so comfortable, is that it didn't make any difference whether you were playing a house of 1,000 or a house of 3,000. People felt like they could talk to you from the audience, and they would. And those were like really awesome moments where you felt like that fourth wall was really down.
Yeah.
And they were a part of the experience that was happening.
Love it.
And they would, yell things out or and this too, is that the more familiar you are with your art form, and you have an opportunity then to really capitalize on those moments where you are so connected to the audience. And a great deal of impromptu and spontaneity happens in those moments that's really beautiful and unique to that experience for that audience. So I think absolutely you're right. That's one of the things that I loved, was that instant sort of understanding of what was happening.
Was there an aha moment when you realized how much magic could actually really help other people and you really wanted to go in that direction?
Yeah, I think this is true for a lot of artists, but I think a lot of people in general, that things like this become really personal for them. These become personal moments for us. We started our career in the college market before jumping to the performing arts market. And we were in the college market for about 10 years. And in that 10 years, we were Campus Entertainer of the Year. So we were making these huge strides in the college market. And I had come home. We had come home off the tour to vote. And then we were going to go back on the road again. And we were dropping off a vehicle to get fixed. And so Cindy was ahead of me with the show vehicle, and I was in the other one, and I got stuck at a stoplight, a new stoplight that was in town. So they went on through, and I was just going to meet them at the mechanics. But what had happened is a tractor trailer came off the interstate and didn't realize there was a stoplight there because it was a new light, and didn't have enough time to stop, and hit me from behind, broke my seat in half.
Whoa.
I crashed into the rear window, the rear windshield. Car was rolling. I climbed back out, went to put my foot on the brake, and it hit something again and threw me back. I woke up in neurologic intensive care with a closed brain injury and a lower spinal cord injury, and spent a long time in therapy, just regaining all the skills I'd lost as a result of that accident. Magic was a really important way back for me. When you ask patient, a client in therapy to do something like picking up a marble and dropping it in a glass or putting a peg in the board, and they can't do that. They don't have the fine motor dexterity to be able to do that. There's nothing motivating about, I can't wait to pick up a marble and put it in a glass. What it does for you is it just confirms in your mind how absolutely broken you are. But when you teach somebody a magic trick, something that there is no expectation that they should know how to do. We should know how to put a marble in the glass. You shouldn't know how to do a magic trick. It's not something that you're taught when you're a kid. Whether you're a stroke patient or a pediatric patient or a young adult in a car accident, there is no expectation that you should know how to do a magic trick. But the learning of a magic trick incorporates all the same cognitive and motor processes as traditional forms of magic. But now you have something you can show somebody when you're done. And you shouldn't know how to do it. So when you are working on it, failure isn't one of those things that you just kind of get frustrated with and go, oh, I can't do this. Whereas picking up a marble and putting it in a glass, it's pretty easy to get frustrated. But with a magic trick, because there is no expectation that you should know how to do it, there is no expectation that you should get it right the first time. So you're willing to practice it over and over and over again. And as you're practicing it, you're doing your therapy. You just don't recognize it as being therapy. And the main thing about that is magic is it works on three levels. It's about dexterity. You have to be able to manipulate the props to do the trick. So every trick that we've put into this magic therapy program are designed so that they can be made more difficult or easy based on the abilities of the client. So every patient can be successful with that trick. So it's about dexterity. It's also about motivation. Even a kid knows and understands that you have to practice something if you want to get it right. So they practice it. They're motivated to practice it because of the last thing. It's about socialization. I now have a positive social experience to share with somebody. I'm going to show them this magic trick. And that's really powerful for somebody who has a disability, somebody who has a debilitating injury from an accident. Giving them something that reshapes their self-concept from how broken I am to, wow, look what I can do. And then being able to do that to a friend, a family member, and that family member go, oh my gosh, wait, how did you do that? That's a completely different feeling for them. And that becomes more motivating for them to be able to say, okay, let me learn another one, but let's learn a harder one this time. And with all of the movements, because they are doing therapy, it translates over into every activity of daily living. If you can magically make a knot appear in the middle of the rope, you can button your shirt. You can tie your shoes. You can pick up your fork. We're developing all the skills that transfer over into making their lives better and more productive But they just don't recognize it that way because in their mind, they're just learning a magic trick.
Mm. Wow. I have.
We call it stealth therapy.
Oh yeah. Well, it's so clear. It's so obvious and so brilliant. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. It makes so much sense.
You know, for older people, it is such a cool way. The first group of people we ever worked with were stroke clients, so older. And I remember one of the individuals my wife was working with was an older guy. He was working so hard on these tricks. And he said, my grandkids are coming to visit me this weekend. So what would I rather say to them? Hey, watch grandpa put this peg in a board, or let grandpa show you a magic trick. So for him, it was not just about gaining the skill to be able to improve his dexterity. It was about maintaining a relationship with his grandchildren. And I think all too often, we forget that that's such an important part of being human is maintaining those relationships.
100%. I mean, it's connecting to your values. I mean, when I speak with my clients, often it's, these red flag moments where you think, oh, something doesn't feel right, or it wasn't what I thought it would be. That's signaling a value either that's not being addressed, right? That is important to you.
Right.
Or that's being, challenged. And
those are questions we don't ever ask ourselves. I mean, we get so caught up in life and doing that we never really stop and take a step back and ask ourselves, so why am I doing this? I was having this conversation this morning in my brain of just, why do I do what I do? And I am really fortunate to be able to stay really busy in this second career. But sometimes it's easy. Like I just finished a ridiculously insane spring schedule. Way more than I probably should have ever taken on. But it was, it's always easy to put it down on paper, right? It's always a lot harder to do it. And this was a challenging spring for us. I was gone a lot of international stuff. So it was tough. But then you step back and you ask yourself, when you're in the middle of it, you never really take a step back to appreciate what's happening. But over the weekend, I had an opportunity to sit down and go, wow, okay, so this is where I was. This is what happened. And to read through some of the emails or the comments or the evaluations and recognize, recenter where you are and really know why you're doing what you do. And it's been for me, for my wife, this has been such a different experience. 30 years on the road with her getting cut in half every night and me throwing my body through the blades of a fan to, doing these professional development training for teachers on how to engage their students with disabilities, or working in a hospital with child life professionals or occupational therapists or physical therapists, and being able to create, for me right now, the most important thing is sustainability. I'm not going to be able to do this forever. So I believe enough in this work that how do we create that when I step away, this work stays in place? How do we do that? And so my connection with universities, teaching undergrad and graduate students this kind of approach. What does arts integration really look like in a special education classroom? And what does the integration of magic tricks actually look like in a special education classroom? How can I come in with child life specialists in a hospital or pediatric ER doctors? How can I teach them a magic trick to help them reduce the anxiety in a pediatric client and build better rapport and trust between them and that kid? How can I teach an ER nurse to use a magic trick to explain a medical procedure to a child in a way that's fun and entertaining and pulls back the anxiety and the fear about what's going to happen? And it's crazy sometimes when you think that magic has the potential to do these crazy big things, because that's not the way we think of the arts. We talk we talk as members of this arts community. We often talk. It's our motto of that we transform, inspire, challenge, build community. What does that mean? What, those words are easy words to say. And as a magician, I've said them a lot. But now, for the first time in these last 8 years, my wife and I have really been able to focus on transforming, inspiring, what that looks like with a magic trick. How do you take? I went back to school because of a kid I was working with. Our show, when Cindy and I were traveling, our show was not. It was very family friendly, but we didn't perform for a family audience very often. It was sophisticated magic done in a big production style. So most of the time we were brought into a performing arts series on the same series as their Broadway productions. And 99% of our audience would be adults. And so when we did the magic therapy thing, we also only worked with adults, which makes no sense to anybody that hears me say this, because you automatically, it's one of those things we were talking about earlier of the stereotype of tap dance or magician. You think magic, you think kids. Well, one of our goals was to break that stereotype so that when you thought magic, you thought adult, you thought spectacle, you thought amazement, you thought wonder. We wanted to break that. And so when we started the magic therapy program, we also only worked with adults. I never took us into a pediatric situation. I was working in South Florida. We had been booked to do 3 performances at a performing arts center there. And one of the patrons had some money, and he gave it to the executive director and said, I want you to find an artist that can merge the arts and medicine. And so John was like, I know you can do this. And I'm like, absolutely. This was 2009. And I went in, I did 3 days of training at this large hospital system in South Florida. And then the last day, they asked me if I could model this for their therapist so they could see actually how we all know the tricks now. How do we actually really use them? So I walked into this room to work with the client. And when I walked through the door, it was a kid. It was like a 9-year-old boy. And I literally turned right around and walked out. And I looked at her and I said, that's a kid. And she goes, yes, we are a pediatric rehab center. And I'm thinking, okay, all right. And at this point, all I'm thinking to myself is this is research-based intervention. This is going to work. I'm going to go in on the research. So I went in and I sat down with this little kid. So he's sitting across from me. His OT is sitting behind him. His speech pathologist is sitting behind him. His dad is sitting behind me. And I do the first trick. And I get nothing. This kid doesn't laugh. He doesn't smile. He does nothing, absolutely nothing. He looks at me and he starts to lean very slowly towards me, like coming straight at me, to his nose, almost touched my nose. And then he just stopped and he went back and he sat down. And I thought, what was that? And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is why I don't work with children. But I sit down and I thought, okay. So I go to reach for the second trick, and this little boy goes, wait, can you teach me that? Yes. So I gave him a piece of rope, and he started asking me questions. Where do I put my hands? How do I cross my arms? And through all of these questions, he learned this trick. We probably worked on it 4 or 5 minutes. He learned the trick. You make a knot appear on a rope. And now he's making this knot appear in all these different places on the rope. And he's laughing and he's having fun. And therapeutically, he's really engaged because we're using gross motor coordination and visual motor integration and all sorts of therapeutic things for this kid. So then I show him the second trick and he just starts laughing. And he goes, wait, I can learn? And it's like, absolutely. So I give him the stuff that he needs. And again, he starts asking me questions. How do I fold the bill? Where do I put the paper clips? He learns this trick. We play with it several times. Session's over, 20 minutes. He stands up. He really awkwardly kind of slaps me a high five, and he goes off with his occupational therapist. So I'm sitting there just trying to figure out what this was. What was this experience? And you know how you get like when you tune the rest of the world out when you're trying to like figure this out. And as I started to become more aware of what was happening around me in those seconds, I could hear his dad behind me, and his dad was crying. And I stood up, and his dad grabbed me and gave me this really big hug. And he said, That's the first time I've ever heard my son speak. And I was floored. It was the first time I heard the word autism, and it changed everything for me that day. Of course, the kid didn't miraculously develop speech in that moment. He had speech. He was talking to somebody, selectively mute. He wasn't talking to his parents. His speech path said to me, I've been working with him for 18 months. I've heard him say 10, 11 words, but I've never heard him put together sentences before. Clearly, he was doing that to a stuffed animal, to some imaginary friend in the backyard, somebody he was having conversation with. But the most important thing that happened in that moment is that amazement factor, that curiosity factor. I saw this magic trick. I don't know how that works. And if I want to learn it, I have to engage with this guy. So he was motivated to talk to me. And by talking to me, he was able to learn those tricks that he could go and show to somebody else. Now, I've had that same experience now probably hundreds of times with kids on the spectrum. I really no longer listen to a teacher when they say, oh, that child's nonverbal. Okay, because I don't know. I don't want to put any sort of preset limitations or assumptions on anybody. I don't know what they're capable of because I'm just now meeting them. But because of that experience with Thomas, I went back to school and got my master's in arts integration. I wanted to understand how kids with disabilities learned. What was different about this? And why is it that if they're having difficulty learning in a more traditional way, why can't we not look at how the arts could be easier for them to learn and to understand these kind of abstract concepts? So that was kind of my first foray into digging deeper into what this was all about. And then, of course, pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, my schedule had been really busy doing residency works with schools and hospitals with the presenters that I had become such good friends with over the years as a performer. Pandemic hit, and I'm not traveling anymore. And so that was the perfect opportunity for me to hunker down and knock out my PhD. So that was my pandemic project, was
Oh, wow.
finishing up my doctorate. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I went back to school and did my PhD in education, special education.
Oh,
And it's
congrats.
crazy. Thank you. It's weird when people call me Dr. Spencer now. Like I get introduced at all these professional development things, and it's like, oh, and Dr. Spencer. And I'm looking around like, okay, who am I? Who else am I sharing this bill with? I don't know. When I started into this program, people said to me in education, they said, when you get those three letters after your name, everything will be different. And I thought that is absolutely ridiculous because the work is the same.
Mm.
So what happens is when I got those three letters after my name, the perception of the work changed. It's so bizarre because I doubted it. I really doubted it. But it has, being Dr. Spencer and doing this work changes the perception in the education system because now all of a sudden, oh, well, he has to know what he's talking about. Well, I knew what I was talking about before. I mean, it's my art form. I know what this does. But now I have the research and the letters. And so it's part of it is really exciting and part of it is incredibly disappointing.
Yeah, I hear you. That's an amazing distinction, and one that's so important because it makes you realize how much we miss out on. I mean, it's great that you did it and that you sort of acquiesced. You had the time, you did it, but wow, right? The limiting beliefs
Yeah.
of folks about what things should be, and I'll only listen to you if.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous. But, like I said, it's opened up some really amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
I just took a faculty position at the University of Alabama, Birmingham in their occupational therapy program. I've been working with them for years,
Yeah.
and as a research consultant, but now all of a sudden, PhD, I can come on as faculty, which is great. My work's not really changing. It's just, a lot of universities have that requirement.
Yeah.
I just took a position of faculty with Harvard Medical and Boston Children's Hospital's Pediatric Sedation Conference, where I teach a course on the non-pharmacologic application of magic tricks in pediatric sedation outside of the operating room.
Huh.
So again, all of these, right, exactly. I sit there and I go, what?
Yeah.
It's because it's all centered around that art form that I love, an art
Yeah.
form that I'm really passionate about, and one that I know taps people at a really deep level through curiosity, and curiosity is a powerful motivator.
Yes, indeed. That was Kevin when he was 5.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly
I mean,
right.
nothing's changed. It's so funny. I think it's so amazing to sort of recognize these things, right? And remember them. I mean, if there was something that 5-year-old Kevin would want to hear that he might, that you could tell him now that you think he might
Ooh.
wanted to have heard, what might that be?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I can't think of anything because, I come from my parents are absolutely amazing. They have been so supportive of everything, every harebrained thing that all of us as children went through. They were really good about sitting down with us and asking us questions. So this is what you want to do. Okay, can you tell me why this is what you want to do?
Mm.
But never telling us you can't do that. Was never that. It was like, okay, let's have a conversation about why you think this is important for you to do. And then being fully supportive, even if you pursued it and you failed, being able to sit down with you when it was all done and saying, okay, so let's look at that. So why do you think that happened?
Mm.
Always very, very supportive and very analytical with us. And so I don't, I think magic is such a crazy thing. It's funny because when I was pursuing music, obviously that nobody's going to like question pursuing music. But when I started to pursue magic, people were like, what? Can you make a living doing that? But my mom and dad they were never like that. Even when I was in high school, my dad is a carpenter. Even when I was in high school, I was not a sports person. You were not going to, I'm a little guy. I was a littler guy when I was in high school. I was freshman in high school. I was 4'9" and 87 pounds. I am not going to be on a football field. So the way that I was able to connect with my dad is we went out to his workshop and we built magic tricks.
Mm.
And he was so supportive of being creative with me in that process. So I always felt like I had that support. And of course, my friends thought it was cool. I would go watch them play football. And then afterwards, we would all go out to the dog and suds and I would do magic tricks. So I never felt like I wasn't a part of the group. I never felt like I was ostracized. I never felt like I was demeaned or made fun of in any way. And I always had the support of my friends and family. So, yeah, I can't think of anything that I would have loved to have heard.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, how wonderful, right, to grow up that way. But it is interesting when I ask that question that it's taken in the context of, that maybe something was wrong or that I struggle or whatever, and it's going to be okay, Kevin. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's really funny. It's like, no, there's nothing you would want to hear. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Do you think there's anything he would
Yeah.
say to you now?
Mm. You know what? I had a conversation with my dad probably a couple of weeks ago. I was sharing an experience on the road and an experience that I'd had with some kids. And my dad really teared up. And he looked at me and he said, I'm just so proud of who you've become.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. So, it's amazing that any of us get to grow up and do the thing that we love, especially in the arts. And to be able to do something that I love so much and to do it in a way that makes a difference in the people's lives, in my life, and the people that I have the privilege of working with, people that are often really marginalized and overlooked in our society. And I see just how absolutely amazing and funny and smart and beautiful they are because I get to see it in a completely different way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I was going to ask you, how do you want to be remembered?
I don't know that I've ever thought about it. I think I would like people to remember me as somebody who cared for other people, that um, that saw the ability in everybody rather than the disability in people. I think I would like people to remember me as a person who looked for the strengths and the positives.
Mm, absolutely. What, if anything, do people often get wrong about you?
I think, as a magician, I think the first thing that they often get wrong is that they think I'm probably arrogant,
That's funny. Yeah.
coming from that. Yeah. Coming from that kind of magic background. As a matter of fact, one of my closest colleagues that I work with from when I was still performing, she would never bring her family to see a show because she said, I don't want to destroy this image of who I know you are and then come and see you on the stage and you be this kind of swarmy guy that I don't know. And so when we announced that we were retiring the show, she thought, okay. And then she came and brought her family to the show, and she goes, "You're the same person on the stage that you are off the stage. You're a little bigger on the stage, but you're the same person." It's like, yeah, I tried to tell you that. And so I think that's something that people get wrong about me is that they might think that I'm proud or arrogant. Yeah, I think sometimes people, because I'm in the arts, might underestimate my intellect.
Uh-huh.
I think sometimes they think we only go into the arts because we can't cut it anywhere else. It's like, wait, whoa, 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 what? You know.
Well, you fixed that with a
So
PhD, right?
yeah. So I think I think those are probably the two things, that
Yeah,
they think.
that it makes sense. And what is your definition of living in the moment?
Uh, I've thought about that too. I
Mm,
think that living in the moment is about appreciating where you are and what you have right now, in this time, in this space, the people that you're connected to, what you are giving to each other, not just what you're taking, but what you're giving, what you're sharing in those moments. I think that I've thought so much about this since looking at what the name of your podcast is and everything. I think I tend to live in the moment most of the time,
mm,
um, because it's I don't want to use the word forced because I think it's a decision, but because of the population that I spend most of my time with, people with disabilities, you have to be very present. You have to be in the
mm.
moment, which takes a lot of energy, as you know. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of commitment. It's exhausting to be in the moment with them, to be fully immersed with who they are. Because when you're not, they know you're not. And when you're not, they think, as I think most of us do, that if this is a moment that you're not as fully immersed in as you were in other moments, this moment must be less important, less significant than those other moments. And so I think because of the work that I do, I have a tendency to live in the moment a lot.
That makes sense. And what about, I'm so interested in the space between when you're really focused and in the moment, and that made perfect sense what you said, and when you step away from it and you're processing or you're done the interaction. What's that space like? Is it a processing space where you're more in your head and maybe even your heart and processing, or are you able to actually still be in the moment then? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
So I think what I try to do with my work is I want to have these experiences during the day. I want to process them as quickly as I can at night because I think by processing them, I become more effective the next day.
Mm,
And I think that's constantly a process for me. But I also want to process everything that I do work wise before I come home.
Mm.
Because when I come home, this is a different being in the moment. And I want to be able to step away from the work that is very consuming, that can have a tendency to be incredibly consuming.
Yep.
I want to be able to kind of step away from that and live in the moment of this time with my wife and this time with my family. And for me, living in that moment is crazy little things of planting flowers in my yard and looking at how beautiful they are when they grow,
Yep.
of being able to spend time with Cindy in a way that's as meaningful for her and as impactful for her. So being in the moment for me is constantly being aware of the blessings that I have in my life and
Mm-hmm.
what allows me to do this and to be grateful for those. Not to look at things that I might want or things that I don't have, but to look at what I have and how happy we are and how amazing this life has been for us.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. I work on a very simple model that is very sort of inelegant in the words. I love words, but what I love is how inelegant these words are. And they are, I get to. And I call it choice with gratitude. Choice with gratitude.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that puts
that's
you in the moment.
beautiful.
It puts you in the
Yeah,
moment.
that's beautiful. You're exactly right. Yeah. I get to do this. Yeah. Yeah.
Because not only are you doing it, so not only are you, I choose to do this, or I want to do this, I get to do this. You're doing it, but you appreciate it. And that puts you right in that spot.
Yeah. And I think what's so important for us as artists too is I get to do this, but I only get to do this because of the people who are willing to put their faith and trust in what this is. So one of the things, I'm home for an extended time now. So one of the first things I did this morning was went through all of my stuff for the year and sent an email out to every person that I worked with and said, thank you, because I get to do this because you believe in this work. And the partnership that we've been able to establish because of this is really important to me. I get to do this because you get to do what you do. And this is definitely something that we do together. We were always booked 18 to 20 months in advance. So in 2013, we made the decision that 2015 would be the last year that we would tour with the show and we would transition into just this work with the nonprofit. And I can remember sitting down with some of our closest friends, buyers in the market, and just saying to them, we don't know what this is. But 25 years ago, when I came into this market, you guys all took a chance. You took a risk on a guy you knew nothing about, on a show you'd never seen, but you took a leap of faith and you said, let's give this a try. I'm asking you to do that again. I don't know what this is, but now you know me. And hopefully, I'm not going to let you down. So let's do this and let's figure out what this is together and how we can impact your community, not in ways that are happening on your stage, but ways that are happening off your stage, out of your building and into your community. And they did. I think one of the things I love about my job is every week is different. I don't know. Is it going to be education? Is it going to be healthcare? Is it going to be a combination of both? And just new kind of opportunities pop up all the time. Like, well, what do you think? You think you could talk about this? Well, let me take a look. See.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty beautiful that I'm constantly being stretched, which is great. I love the challenge. So,
Yep. Circling right back to that challenge. No, it makes sense. I love it. I could speak with you all day long. This has been such a joy. Let's do the rapid fire. So I'm going to say what makes you, and I'm going to say an adjective, and then you can just say whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
Here we go.
Sounds good.
What makes
challenging?
What makes you hungry?
Blank space there. There's a complete blank space there. What makes me hungry? Does it have to be literal hunger?
I love this. This is my trick. Which way did your head go first? To food or to
food? Yeah.
Because we're primitive beings, right? I mean, come on, we're hardwired. Whatever you want, you can do both. You can do both.
My head automatically went to food.
I love it.
What makes me hungry? Thai food. makes me hungry. I love
Yeah,
Thai food. Um, what makes me hungry as a person? I think making a difference in somebody's life.
for sure. And you know what's amazing is how the brain, and you would appreciate this because you study the brain, but is even though your gut instinct was to say Thai food, your brain, your other side of your brain was like, do not say that, do not say that. But when I give you permission, to make it whatever you want, you go, oh well, Thai food.
Yeah, Thai food. It's Thai food makes me hungry.
Isn't that funny? So
It
that
is
was that
funny.
was like, what do you think that value was for you? Was it like to not be misinterpreted, to not answer correctly, to not like what stopped you there? Because your brain stopped you. It was like, oh,
I think it's just such a different conversation from what we've been having that my brain really had to come to a full stop and recalibrate and then start to go back again. It's like, what? What?
I love it. That's why I keep that one in there. It's so funny.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh my gosh, my favorite. What makes you sad?
Um, so that's an easy one for me. I think what makes me sad is when I see people underestimate the potential of others.
Hmm. Amen. What inspires you?
People, all people. I I'm inspired by what people believe, what people think, how people behave, the challenges that people take on. I think I'm one of those people watcher people, and I think people just inspire me.
Yeah,
Some people inspire me to be better. Um,
totally. Yeah,
People inspire me to be more compassionate.
yeah. And you inspire a lot of people. You know that, right?
I hope so. Yeah,
Is it difficult to receive that?
it's really hard. Yeah, I think it's the hardest part. It's the hardest part of my work.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting. What frustrates you?
people.
Fair, fair.
I think I get frustrated with not sometimes not completing a project when I think I should, or not being able to spend time with people that I really want to spend time with. I get to do a lot of things, and that's pretty awesome. I think the thing that frustrates me is maybe when I don't get to do those things as effectively as I'd like to.
Mm. So really, you're talking about yourself. You frustrate yourself.
Yeah, a lot.
Cool. What makes you laugh?
People. It's funny how this all comes back to that. There's very few things I that I that are manufactured that I think are funny, but I think people are hilarious.
Yeah, no, totally. What makes you angry?
I honestly, I can't remember the last time I was really angry.
Wow.
I get disappointed,
Mm.
but I can't remember the last time I was really angry. I don't know that I. Hmm,
Interesting.
yeah, I think maybe the last time I was really angry man, could have been maybe even college. And I think the thing that probably makes me get angry is when I'm accused of something that I didn't do.
Mm. Fair enough.
I don't usually get angry. I can't remember the last time I was angry.
I find that really interesting because it's obviously something you don't like to resonate there. Most people don't.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But the fact that you can't even really remember it, it stands out to me that you're very pragmatic. Like in addition to all your creativity and all of that, is you're really able to analyze, but you're also really able to flow. And it's like a
Hmm.
really cool marriage. So I feel like in a way you've been able to lead that way. And so it makes sense that the only thing that you could think of that makes you angry is when someone accuses you of something, because it sounds like that you control how you show up in the world, and it's fact for you, right?
Yes.
And so when
Yeah.
somebody doesn't believe it, yeah, like you live by your values, clearly.
Yes. Absolutely. And
Yep.
so I can get frustrated with that, or I can get disappointed, but I don't know that I get angry.
Yeah.
I think that what you said is probably really pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Just kind of, when we were performing, one of the things that our illusion designer used to say to us is, you can't worry about what other people think or what other people say,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're leading the pack, because every time you stop and you look behind you, you slow yourself down. So don't look behind you. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. And, even my mom and dad growing up used to say, it doesn't matter what people think. If you know in your heart that what you're doing is right and is true to yourself and true to your beliefs, then what does it matter what anybody else thinks? You just do you.
And what's something that you're looking forward to both today and then big picture?
Today, looking forward to this is going to be an easy day for me. My wife and I are going to head out and do some fun things. So I'm looking forward to just being able to spend some good quality time with her. In July, I'm heading to Uganda. We're drilling 2 clean water wells this summer, so I'm pretty excited about that. My wife and I have a son that's Ugandan, and I get to go and spend some time with Eddie, so I'm excited about that. Looking forward to that.
Oh, wow.
And then long term, I have a really beautiful schedule for 23, 24, doing some things that I think are going to be really impactful, powerful. And so I'm really excited about what my next year looks like and what it holds.
Yeah. I'm
going to learn from this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see as well. Kevin, I can't thank you enough for joining me today, really.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking. This was fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have been speaking today with Dr. Kevin Spencer. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and healthy, everyone. And remember to live in the moment. In music, stop time is that beautiful moment where the band is suspended in rhythmic unison, supporting the soloist to express their individuality. In the moment, I encourage you to take that time and create your own rhythm. Until next time, I'm Lisa Hopkins. Thanks for listening.